Hello, this is the 281st edition of Catch of the Day, available on the Branch Talk YouTube channel. Today we're going to continue reading from a book written by Trent Wilde entitled The King of Crisis in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Starting on the second paragraph, on page 40, we read, "What is the Spirit-filled response to Israel's anti-prophet cries? Because of your great iniquity, your hostility is great. The prophet is a sentinel for my God over Ephraim, yet a fowler's snare is on all his ways, and hostility in the house of his God." Hosea 9, verse 7, C to 8, NRSV. The only reason why Israel was so hostile to Hosea was because their sin was great, and he pointed out their sin. But he didn't do this of his own accord. He was the sentinel of God. Yet they tried to trap him, as did those like them in other generations. Every evil of theirs began at Gilgal. There I came to hate them. Because of the wickedness of their deeds, I will drive them out of my house. I will love them no more. All their officials are rebels. Hosea 9:15, NRSV. Wow! Those are some strong words concerning Gilgal. Whatever happened there was clearly really bad in the eyes of God. After learning what we have about Hosea's message, it shouldn't be too surprising to find out what happened there. Gilgal was the place where Israel established its monarch form of government. It is where Saul was made king. Looking back at the experience will help to provide some context for Hosea's view of the kingship. Samuel was the last in a long line of judges over the tribes of Israel. As he was getting old, the Israelites sought for him to set a king over them. Samuel was not happy about this arrangement, and evidently neither was God. The record reads as follows: "Then all the elders of Israel gathered together, and came to Samuel at Ramah, and said to him, You are old, and your sons do not follow in your ways. Appoint for us, then, a king to govern us, like other nations." But the thing displeased Samuel, when they said, "Give us a king to govern us." Samuel prayed to the Lord, and the Lord said to Samuel, "Listen to the voice of the people in all that they say to you, for they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them, just as they have done to me from the day I brought them up out of Egypt to this day, forsaking me and serving other gods. So also they are doing to you." 1 Samuel chapter 8, verse 4 to 8, NRSV. In replacing Samuel with a king, they were really rejecting God, since it is God who ruled through Samuel. God then had Samuel warn the people about all the terrible things that would happen to them as a result of having a king. 1 Samuel chapter 8, verse 10 to 17. The last part of this terrible warning was this: "And in that day you will cry out because of your king, whom you have chosen for yourselves, but the Lord will not answer you in that day." 1 Samuel chapter 8, verse 18, NRSV. If parents see their children about to do something disastrous, love compels them to warn their children. This is a way of saving them from getting into a mess. But if the children are determined to reject the counsel of the parents and get into a mess anyway, rescuing them from the consequences won't help them. The message of God through Samuel was that if Israel went ahead with their plans of setting up a king for themselves, he would have to let them endure the negative consequences. This was really the only way to help them. By Hosea's time, the people were exactly at that point. They were experiencing all the negative effects of their monarchic structure, and Hosea was telling them that God wasn't going to step in and rescue them from the trouble they had brought upon themselves. Hosea 5 verse 6, 7 verse 14 to 16, 8, 13, and 11:7. This isn't to say that God wouldn't help them. It is just that they had to learn the hard way, and then the system of their own heart's desire would need to be replaced with God's system. In spite of God's warning, Israel was determined to have a king. 1 Samuel chapter 8 verse 19 and 20. So God reluctantly granted their request. 1 Samuel 8 verse 21 and 22. So all the people went to Gilgal, and there they made Saul king before the Lord in Gilgal. There they sacrificed offerings of well-being before the Lord, and there Saul and all the Israelites rejoiced greatly. 1 Samuel chapter 11 verse 15 NRSV. Samuel then spoke to the Israelites and ended his speech with a denunciation of their act. Is it not the wheat harvest today? I will call upon the Lord, that he may send thunder and rain, and you shall know and see that the wickedness that you have done in the sight of the Lord is great in demanding a king for yourselves. 1 Samuel 12 verse 17 NRSV. Samuel proclaimed that Israel's act of demanding a king was not only wickedness, but it was great wickedness. Hosea is looking back upon this event at Gilgal, agreed with Samuel's and God's assessment. In light of this connection with Samuel, it becomes apparent that when Hosea called for the end of uninspired kingship and for it to be replaced with a theocratic system of God ruling through a prophet, he wasn't calling for something new. He was calling for a restoration to Israel's pre-monarchic form of government as it was in the days of Samuel. Hosea 10. Hosea says of Israel, their heart is false, now they must bear their guilt. The Lord will break down their altars and destroy their pillars. For now they will say, we have no king, for we do not fear the Lord, and a king, what could he do for us? Hosea 10, verses 2 and 3. NRSV. By saying now they must bear their guilt, Hosea was saying that Israel was about to experience the negative consequences of their rebellion. God would take away their altars, pillars, and yes, their king. The translation of the beginning of verse 3 may be slightly confusing at first. The phrase for now in this passage isn't the common phrase for now. As in, for now things will be one way, but later it will be different. Take care.